organization are Pro-Chile, for example. This is an organization that promotes Chilean products around the world, actually, and they have office in Canada. Once in a while, they do some showcasing, bring Chilean companies to Canada, to Toronto. From Mexico, what? Mexican people in the audience. Have you heard of Pro Mexico?
Yes.
She works there.
Yay, there we go. So yeah, maybe you can tell everyone, for the sake of everyone, what Pro Mexico does.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Well, we're part of the Ministry of Economy, and what we do is we have our three mandates is to help Mexican companies to export their products or services into Canada in this case, or any part of the world. Promote foreign invest to Mexico, and support Mexican companies that want to establish a subsidiary or a company here in Toronto, in this case, or in Ontario. So we facilitate all the connection with different suppliers or with the client, and that's pretty much what we do. And
So that's fantastic. Just to practically illustrate what we just heard is that if you identified the product that you wanted to import from Mexico to Canada, then Pro Mexico would be your first choice organization to get the reputable leads. So you connect with Pro Mexico and discuss what product you need and in which quantities, and they can help you to find reputable suppliers that have enough volume. And there are similar organizations for other countries. By default, there are embassies and consulates. It's a little bit more difficult to work with them because they are, how to say that? Okay, I can't find the right word, but you know what I mean. They don't care about it. That's simple. But again, you have to insist on meeting them, talking to them. That's your job. That's your primary job as an entrepreneur to make sure you get you get enough response from the people you want the response from. Okay. And again, as I said, the internet certainly has the place in your lead generation strategy, but it should be your primary source of leads or suppliers. By the way, is there anyone in the audience who ever come across any scam? Especially you gentlemen, where you have experience over 30 years of experience in trade. Can you maybe share examples of the fraudulent activities or some fraudulent inquiry that you had?
Specifically, would you like to say something I wrote that just to say that?
Yeah, have you ever received the unsolicited inquiry from a stranger that claims to be representing to the large food company and they don't represent anyone?
It's a lot of things, especially in Middle East. I talked with some of the friends here before. For example, if you want to export some products, you should focus on different tools. One of the tools is agreement. If you don't have a lawyer, if you sell your products without information and research, contract, you are in trouble. I had some contract with CIS country, it is 25 years ago, and I made a contract with a standard of that country, and they opened letter of credit. Everything was true, but when I export the products to that country, before products come to that country, I went to that country and I understood they didn't know anything about the money, because that they had some law, just they changed their products, they bought their products with paper. And I thought, okay, I lost that. But I changed my idea, just I did barter, and I came out of that trouble. I choose that problem. But if you don't have some information, you don't go by agreement, you don't work with good bank,
Yeah.
maybe that bank has some problem.
Due diligence. Due diligence, right. Yeah, there's a term called due diligence, and this includes your you gotta investigate your counterparty. You have to be like an investigator. Yes.
I never got caught in them, but if someone puts a lawyer in there and the lawyer needs a fee ahead of time, scam. Okay?
Yeah.
If they don't work with a bank, and usually top 50 bank or a correspondent of the top 50 bank, probably a scam.
Right.
So it's got to be very careful.
Yes, sir.
I remember about 3 years ago, I started representing a company, a Canadian company, owned by Asian people, and they were promoting the export of high-tech machines, and they were selling all over the world. But I was in charge of promoting the products in Latin America. I had a virtual office attending the inquiries from all the prospective clients there. And in the beginning, I was very happy because we were selling it like hot bread. Unfortunately, the thing is that all these machines tagged and with paperwork from Canadian manufacturer were imported from China or India, relabeled, and eventually sold in anywhere in Latin America.
Oh, I see.
Of course, the dumping case was that
Right.
the selling price was so low that made it so attractive for all sort of important companies like Goodyear or Hella or even Volkswagen in Mexico or Colombia. But it was really disappointing to learn that this company was performing this practice.
Yeah, that's a large-scale scam. Wow. Okay. Yeah, that's why I love these workshops, is because, well, people have different experiences and they can give examples. Okay, so let's maybe spend 2 minutes putting down the answer to question 6. I will be looking for you leads in the following sources, and you may use this once you may think about something that is not here, but may make sense to you. So just a couple of minutes. And then we'll move on to the pricing side. By the way, you will receive a copy of the slides. Some of you take pictures, but don't worry.
You made it possible. You made it possible?
Yeah, we'll email it to all the attendees. Yes. Okay. Okay. Yeah. I'm looking about it to check the answers. It's pretty straightforward. Okay. Now let's talk about the big thing, which is pricing. So in international trade, pricing is regulated. And it's regulated by INCO terms, stands for International Commercial Terms. They regulate the costs and responsibilities between the buyer and the seller, while the product is, well, literally traveling from the point of origin to the point of destination. It's important to understand that, first of all, those rules are the rules, like over with 170 countries. consider the rules as the primary law for any dispute resolution, and that the rules are only about two things, the costs and responsibilities. The way you use Incoterms for pricing in international trade is that if you are the exporter, you use the Incoterms framework to properly calculate your price, to add proper costs to your price. And if you are the importer, you use Incoterms to properly interpret the pricing. Before we move on, is there anyone who is not familiar with Incoterms? Nothing? Okay, perfect. Okay, so if you're not, even if you are familiar, just pretend you are not. Please take those colorful charts on your handout. If you don't have it, let me know. Have more. So what you see in front of you is the graphical representation of what Incoterms are about. And in the first row, you see the buyer and the seller. They are on the opposite sides of the transaction. Then you see on the next row is all the possible steps that the product goes through when it goes from the point of origin to the destination. Packaging, export clearance, all the potential export duties and fees and permits. Inspection, loading the product on the first mean of transportation. Carriage, which is actually the transportation, the shipping. Insurance, more specifically cargo insurance, not risk insurance or receivables insurance, cargo insurance. Import clearance, meaning the cost of all the import paperwork, the duties, all the extra port charges, if you will, or everything extra. Yeah. Handling, yeah. Warehousing, whatever. And unloading. Okay. So these are the only costs that Incoterms regulate. So what's important to understand is that these rules, they have nothing to do with, say, manufacturing of the product that it happens before the transportation, and they don't cover everything that happens after the product was unloaded and delivered. Let's say warranty, right? You're importing this projector and it doesn't work after 3 months. Incoterms has nothing to do with it. Okay? So they only cover the costs and responsibilities between seller and buyer in the international trade transaction. So only those 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 steps. So now here's how you read it. There are 11 rules. In this edition of Incoterms, they group first 7 rules that are applicable to all modes of transport, and the last 4 that are only applicable to waterway and ocean transport. Just to avoid the confusion of everyone, I wanted to focus on first 7, just because they are applicable to every single mode of transport, including ocean. I'll explain why later on, but because many of you are not familiar with the framework, let's focus on the first 7, and then we'll talk about the last 4. So every rule has the acronym and the full meaning, like XWorks, for example, EXW. And in the bracket, you also see the name of either destination, the place of destination and origin. And what it tells you is how to properly quote the price or interpret the price. Because the first line represents the division of costs between the buyer and the seller. And what this means, EXW, XWorks price, is that if you are the seller and you are exporting, you're about to export your product, when quoting your price to the foreign buyer, you may choose to quote it in AXW term. It means that you have to add the packaging and labeling costs to your cost of goods. And that's it. Or of course your profit margin. So you may not add anything else. You cannot add anything else. You cannot do the cost of, for example, loading. You cannot add the cost of transportation, because if you're selling on this term, X works, then your buyer will understand that if you're selling for, let's say, $1,000, like this $1,000 will include only the cost of the product, your profit margin, and the packaging cost. So everything else, all other steps of the transaction, the buyer will have to prepay and prearrange himself or herself. Yeah, this is an example for exporting. Let me give you an example for importing. Let's imagine that you are importing, say, this projector, and you get the quote from the supplier in, let's say, China, and it says X-Works factory in Shanghai, district number 25, $1,000. Then the way you interpret it is exactly the same. You just put yourself in the other, in the opposite side. When you receive this quote, you understand that this price will include the labeling and packaging and their own, production costs in their profit margin. And as the importer, you need to add other costs to that X-Works price. And of course, to add those quotes, you need to know how much will the transportation cost, what will be the duty in Canada, for example, or in your country of destination. So this is the way you interpret this. If you are the importer, if you are the buyer, you interpret Incoterms. Now, when it gets more complex is as we go down, because X-Works is pretty simple. It gets, it gets more complicated when you look into other terms. So, for example, let's look into carriage and insurance paid to. If you are the seller, you are supposed to prearrange and prepay everything, including the transportation. And if you are the buyer, if you're buying on CIP term, then you know that all you need to do is to add the cost of basically duties, taxes, and unloading. Now, if you are, let's say, buying something on Amazon, let's say the product from US, buy it on Amazon, and it comes to you with, let's say, Canada Post or UPS, then most likely the foreign seller sold you on either DDP or DAP term, which means that you get the product at your door, but you either have to pay the duty yourself. I mean, the postman comes in and they charge you for duty right away. Or Canada Post, for example, they pay the duty and then they charge you later on. So something like that. So if in the latest scenario, it's DDP because they prepay and prearrange for the duty, and then you just. Oh, sorry, no, that was the example of DAP when the product comes into you. And you have to pay the duty. In some cases, you can prepay the duty when you buy the product. I don't really. It's not a common case. It's really technically very limited to do that, but things of this nature happen. Okay. So does it make sense now? Does it? Yeah. Please.
How do you know where is your product falling? I guess it's more like when you quote your options,
Right. It doesn't really depend on the product. It's really a matter of negotiation. Yeah, there's no such thing as the most recommended term for, let's say, flavor or whatever other product. Yeah, it's really the negotiation. A couple of suggestions for negotiation. Of course, if you are the seller, then X-Works is the best for you, and if you are the buyer, then one of the terms is best for you because you don't bother. However, let's say if you are the seller and you have preferred rates with your favorite logistics firm. You know that if you prearrange and prepay the transportation, your buyer will get the better price as compared to if they would be in charge of shipping. See what I mean? In this case, even if you're a supplier, you may offer them to sell on CIP term because you have better rate from your freight forwarder. And the reason why we have so many Incoterms rules is exactly because, the international trade community, if you want, who came up with this Incoterms, like a bunch of lawyers basically, they wanted you to have room for negotiations. That's why there are so many rules. Okay. Now, before we move on to the responsibilities, are the cost, is the division of cost clear? If not, that's fine. That's what we're here for. Please don't be shy and ask your question. Yes?
If you're an exporter, which one of those terms is the most popular, mostly widely used?
That's a good question. I get this question quite often. There's not, I couldn't really find the data for that. I was specifically looking for it because lots of people ask about it. So yeah, I don't really have the answer to this question, but generally, if you are the exporter, then either exports or FCA is the easiest term for you. And if you are buying Canadian goods, then be prepared that these are the terms that Canadian suppliers will prefer because they are very accustomed to selling locally or selling to the United States, so they don't really want to bother with all the shipping and stuff. Now, this second line in each of the term represents the division of responsibilities, and where you see the letter R is the place where the responsibility is transferred between the seller, from the seller to the buyer. If you noticed, there are some terms where the point of transfer of responsibility is the same as the transfer of the costs, like exports, like those D terms. But there's a couple of terms, a couple of C terms, where as the seller, you prepay and pre-arrange for the costs, for the cost of shipping and insurance, but you lose the responsibility for your product as soon as you load your product to the first mean of transport. So what it means is that let's say you're selling this projector on CIP term,